I am coming.
Fast, hard, and often.
Oh yeah. Welcome back. What is this now? Episode 4, Luis?
I believe so. Week
Episode
three, week
4.
three recap.
Episode 4, the Rubbin Tubs podcast. We got a new guest this week. We got Brayden. Gonna be talking a little college football today. Brayden's gonna give us a little insight on the Mountain West with him being from Colorado and talk a little Dion and Shadur. So let's get on into it.
All right, yeah. Well, so and you guys go ahead and you kind of give me direction, but I see that's the first thing on the list. I'm telling you right now, I think that Colorado is going to get exposed. I think that the TCU game, Joe Gillespie and that entire defensive scheme 3-3-5 made them look a lot better than they actually are. Travis Hunter also took a cheap shot, and I won't condone that, but I think that is going to I think that now they're going to be leaning on Weaver and Edwards. Weaver being the receiver, Edwards at running back. Shador, I think, is good, and I think he is legit. But dude, it's Colorado State, all right. So let me preface it like this: I am in ninth legacy at Colorado State, born and raised a Ram fan, and they're not
Yeah,
good.
but you didn't go to Colorado State.
No, I didn't, but I don't. Have followed them in every single sport for as long as I can remember before I even paid attention to TCU and wanted to go to TCU.
Yeah, Brayden, kind of like what you're touching on. This is actually something that's been kind of like a recurring topic about whether or not we think Colorado, whenever they inevitably fall off or start losing games, if it's going to be considered a huge exposing of Colorado and like a huge fall off. So I'm kind of curious to dive a little bit more into your thoughts in the next couple games because they got Oregon next week, and then they got
Mm-hmm.
USC after that, and then they do have a tough schedule. So
Colorado's defense, I
L
mean, there's too
L.
many soft spots. I mean, I think Oregon's not even that good, but I think that we're gonna see. I Colorado could squeak that one by, but USC is an inevitable loss. Like that is, there's no ifs, ands, or buts around that, and Washington is the same.
You think that they could beat Oregon?
I do. Like I
Wow,
can
because
tell you
I
more.
like I like Oregon this year. I like them a
so
lot. Especially I like Bo Nix a lot too. I don't think that they can beat Oregon. I think that that's their first L is against Oregon, and I think that they listen. I hope that they beat USC because fuck Lincoln Riley. But I think that they take two back to back L's right there.
yeah,
I
I think just piggybacking off that, I don't want to reveal my pick yet for the Oregon Colorado game because I know towards the later in this episode I want to do like a quick preview into the next week's slate, which includes that game. And I did come out on the last episode and say that I was going to say that I think Colorado is going to pull it off and upset one of the two. I think they're going to upset either Oregon or USC. I'm not going to reveal who I think they're going to upset though. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously like going back to like Colorado and like whether or not we think like how good they're going to be this year. Brayden, we've talked about this the last couple episodes. Cole, I think, said maybe they can go 8-4 if we take the optimistic approach, maybe 7-5. I think they go 6-6. But I also said this to Parker. I think when Colorado loses these games, I don't think it's going to be considered that much of a fall off, and I still think they're going to have a lot of eyeballs on them. Just because at the same time, it's still year one of prime, and you have to kind of put it into perspective. Like, yeah, they've done great; they're 3-0, but they've beaten TCU, Nebraska, and Colorado State. Like they haven't beaten, I don't know, Oregon and USC yet, for example. So I don't know. I guess we'll see next week what they're really about.
Colorado State, like I'll put it like this. So Kamara, who is their best defensive player by leaps and bounds. If it weren't for what I thought was a super questionable uh, targeting call in that game and some just kind of careless penalties that carried them in their first overtime drive, I don't think that Colorado pulls that out. So the way that they now, I'll give credit to Shador, the way that he basically was able to come back 11 points in the fourth quarter. I think that is impressive, but I think that was more so just speaking to just how worn down and poorly conditioned Colorado State was than Colorado actually being good. Shador's good. I think that there's a toxic leadership issue in that organization, like that Kamara trying to poke Kamara's eyes out, or say yeah, Shador trying to poke Kamara's eyes out, and it's just like I don't know. It's just there's too much hype around that, around like just Dion, and great credit to him. He built up a great program from scratch. They have 84 whatever specific number it is new players. And so for what they actually are, and the hype and the brand building and the money that's now starting to come into the program, good on him. Nobody can take that away from him. But like that was the first question they asked him in his interview. We want to talk about your son. He's like, well, listen, I don't want to talk about my sons. I want to talk about my team. And I think it's because he's starting to realize, like, I just said there's this weird, like, that there's too much focus on Shador, and especially now that Travis Hunter's out, and I don't know how long he will be out, and I just know he went to the hospital immediately after the hit, and I don't know what the state of his injury is, but I don't even think Oregon's that good. I mean, Texas Tech was neck and neck until Oregon kind of pulled away,
Yeah,
and I think Bo Nix, he was mid at Auburn at best, and I think he honestly was
for
just chasing.
sure.
I think he was just chasing a more certain and larger NIL deal with Oregon, which you're obviously going to get when you go to Oregon just through Nike money. I mean, I live in Dallas, and I don't know if y'all saw the massive ass sign. It was took up
Is it
two,
bodacious?
yeah, two
Dude,
skyscrapers in
that
downtown
bodacious
Dallas.
ad is everywhere. It's
In New
everywhere.
York.
Yeah,
If you go on 27sports.com, like the recruiting website,
yeah.
where you can see all the rankings and stuff, team rankings, the recruiting cycle, Bodacious is like the number one ad throughout 24/7 sports. It's plastered over everything. You go to a particular team's like recruiting site, you can go and look at like Oklahoma's entire like recruiting database for this year, 2024 and 2025. And there's ads up on the top for Oregon and for Bo Nix saying like Bodacious. They're everywhere right now.
I mean, we're and like think about it, like so outside of Bo Nix, like Oregon had fallen out of like basically the graces of college football from being a perennial powerhouse competing for a national championship, and like talent has slowly dwindled, and when they're looking to fill a spot and try to be immediate contenders right off the bat, and they're more looking so to the transfer portal, like what other options did they have other than Bo Nix? What, Jackson Dart, Keaton Slovis, or like whatever? Like they didn't have a lot. And Phil Knight was basically like being opened up his wallet, and Daddy Knight's like, I don't care, get me somebody that's even mildly decent, and we're gonna try and build around it. But I think that they're fraudulent, and I think that Bo Nix was basically the best of the rest.
But he looks good.
Yeah, but I
That's the
mean,
thing is he's looked really good.
At
but
Oregon, he's looked good. In
Yeah,
general,
like
even going back to last year.
I'm not even disagreeing with you. Like I kind of agree that he definitely wasn't the best prospect in that transfer portal when Oregon picked him up. And I mean they kind of settled for him, but it's almost like I mean, at least from what I've seen so far in the first few weeks of the season, like it's kind of worked out. He's played really well. And I
I
mean Oregon is playing well.
he is good, but like it's this is why, and not this is why I kind of lean in, like, and I know it's the last point is the Wyoming Texas game, but like I think the Mountain West, because like the reason, and this will make sense why I'm bringing this up in a second, but because Oregon played Texas Tech, but Texas Tech lost to Wyoming. I think the Mountain West is as good or as deep as they've ever been. I also feel like that they have the biggest chip on their shoulder because like basically they feel like they're still forgotten about, and they're not going to be during the realignment stuff, or they won't be part of the realignment, uh, negotiations. They're not going to benefit from that. That's fine and all, and like I guess they might be playing more harder than they ever have, but like they're still not that talented in general, and the coaching is not as elite. But the fact that like Texas Tech lost, and then Oregon, their next game was, or Texas Tech's next game was then against Oregon from there, and it's like,
Yeah.
but like they hung with Oregon until they pulled away near the end, and it's just like, so I don't really think that Oregon is that good. I think Tech is extremely mid, and I think that the Mountain West is just like, you'll like this. You both of you will like this. Baker Mayfield, like they woke up feeling dangerous, and like they're just trying to go make a statement because like they had nothing to fucking lose. They feel like the rest of the world kind of wrote them off, and they're like, well, like let's go make a fucking statement. I mean,
So since you brought up Wyoming a little bit right there, what do you think that says about Texas and Bama?
Texas,
Because Bama obviously struggled against. Let me preface this by saying I was on vacation this weekend, so like I didn't get to watch any college. I was in the mountains, so I had no internet connection. I couldn't watch any of the games, but I did see that Wyoming was tied with Texas going into the fourth quarter 10-10, and
yep,
they nearly beat them. And Bama almost lost to who did Bama almost lose to?
South
So
Florida.
yeah, they were playing USF, and I think most of that game the score was like 10-3, and then they finally
Mm-hmm.
scored a second touchdown, make it 17-3 towards the end. And this is the game where they finally like, well, I want to not even finally because it's only week 3, but they benched Milrow, started
Mhm.
Buchner. He went 5 of 14, 34 yards. And then they throw in Simpson, the third guy. He went 5 for 9 for 73 yards. And yeah, no, they did not look pretty. I didn't see the entire game because I was like flipping back and forth between some of the other games. But then simultaneously, like later that night, you see Texas like 10-10 going into the fourth quarter with Wyoming. And this was, dude, we talked about this like last week. Again, I don't want to jump the gun yet because Texas, at the end of the day, they did look really good against Alabama. We've already covered that. But they might be just a little bit over. I don't know. I think that Bama game rose their stock a lot. And I think maybe it inflated it a little bit too much just because then you go back and see Alabama throw this atrocious performance in against USF. Like, sure, they held them to 3 points. They scored 17. I think I saw this stat the other day where this was like one of the fewest amounts of points they've scored in like against anybody like in
Mm-hmm.
God knows how long. So I don't know.
I mean, it was weird too because they were on the weather delay, and so I know that like played somewhat of a factor. But when they went into weather delay, it was 3-0 USF, and then they went into halftime. It was tied 3-3, and it was just abysmal. The timing, and I think it's just because Saban had zero confidence in Buchner, and started the game, and he played throughout the first half. And I mean, he couldn't hit anything. Now, granted, the receivers were dropping, and it was slippery conditions, but still, like there really isn't that much of an excuse. So then they just kind of started to do what I think what Colorado does: some throw to the flat and get the defense spread out. And like where Buchner was still like, I mean, dude, it was just like might as well like it's like walking up to a dartboard, covered and blindfolded, and just trying to hope that like you get remotely hit the board. Like there was no accuracy care in the world, and honestly, there's a lot of scrambling going on, and that the Bama offensive line looked pretty abysmal, which I thought Colorado's also did. I don't know, like it is weird. I feel like there's a lot of these games. There's a lot of the games I think Colorado versus TCU and Texas versus Alabama. I think it artificially inflated a lot of different draft stocks, and
Yes, yes.
the world is too focused on the outcomes of those games, and like I don't know, it's weird. Like this year in college football, like there's not a lot of things going on that make sense.
Dude, it's odd. I mean, you even look at South Carolina, Georgia. South Carolina almost pulled off what could be considered, probably the biggest upset of the year if they pulled that off. But I don't want to get hung up on this too much. But I will just say that I don't know if you watched I think it was the second episode, Brayden, but Luis and I were both saying that, like, I wasn't trying to take anything away from Texas. Like, they looked really good, but like, it didn't look like the Bama that we're used to seeing
No,
when they
no.
played them. And like, I get that people are gonna hear that and be like, oh, like you're just shitting on Texas, like you're an Oklahoma fan, this and that. Like, no, genuinely, all biased aside, like Bama is not the Bama that we're used to. I firmly believe that when Ole Miss goes into Tuscaloosa this weekend, Ole Miss might beat them. I
I
think that
agree.
they actually should be favored.
I agree. I have the receipts for the Colorado State game. I literally said like to my buddies, I was like, one, I hammered that spread. Like
Jay Norvell. Jay Norvell. I talked about him so much last episode. I love Jay Norvell.
I agree. And
Dude,
he came
I'm-
over from Nevada and he brought over a majority of that team with him. So think about it like this, like and not neither team is, a powerhouse, but they essentially combine two college football programs. And so you kind of get to pick
Mhm.
and choose between two. So like you're going to get better if you just have your pick of basically between players on two different teams. I do like him. It's the offensive line looked the best they have looked in a very long time because last year Colorado State was averaging almost, I think it was 7 sacks a game, and they had the most QB pressures and they had the worst
Wow.
offensive line statistically in college football last year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was abysmal, and so they're working on that part of it. But no, but with going back to the Saban thing that you mentioned, here's my take. Nick Saban, and I'm not saying he's not the GOAT, but all I'm saying is if you think about it, when you think about NIL, especially when it was before it became an actual thing, there was no one that was more outspoken about NIL not happening than Nick Saban. He and Jimbo were going, then would famously get back into it, and the whole reason
Dabo.
is,
Dabo too.
or I guess Dabo as well. But if you think about the whole issue with it is because he's like, no, now we're on an even playing field. Like that's Nick Saban's been doing this for the last 20 years, and now that everybody else is on an even playing field, he can't attract and recruit the talent that he once was. And I think Kirby Smart is on a fast track to be the next Saban. And I think that's
Well,
yeah. I mean, I just think Saban has lost his edge. That was his. That
you
was his.
can't really say that he's not attracting the talent because they had a top 5 recruiting class last year. They have a top 5 recruiting class this year. They're
they
probably going
will.
to have a top 5 recruiting class next
Well,
year.
they
I don't think it's
actually
talent.
they also actually, if you look at the composites, they actually have like the most talented roster in the country right now.
Yeah.
If you look at the entire rosters. But I do agree with some of what you're saying, Brayden, because this is something I've said for the last like 2-3 years, where I think like everyone's time comes and goes, right? Like it doesn't matter who you are. Like you can't keep your mojo forever. I mean, us as TCU fans, like we saw the fall of like Gary Patterson, even though he's probably like the greatest coach that's ever like set foot on our campus. But Nick Saban, I think I've been saying this for years. I think his time is slowly coming to an end. Now, I don't think that means he's going to become a terrible coach and fall off that badly, but I do think, I mean, going back to what you're saying in like that feud that he had with Jimbo, because he was making those comments about, oh, like Texas A&M just bought their like recruiting class, and like, because like now with NIL and like everything that's going on, especially with the transfer portal, we even touched on this week one, how there's going to be so much more parity because you can roster build now. I mean, we've seen it with Colorado this year. Duke did it a little bit, and they ended up beating the shit out of Clemson. There's been a couple teams that have done a really good job roster building this year. And yeah, I can't imagine Nick Saban's too happy in this new era where you're not only going to be relying on recruiting kids out of high school. Like now you can just look at someone and say, hey, like you're a sophomore, rising junior, like I want you to transfer here, and like here's this back that we're going to give you. And that's it. Like it'll just become a college version of free agency a little bit, but
With no restrictions.
seriously, I mean,
What could go wrong?
whether you love it or hate it, we have to acknowledge that it is like happening though, and it's just going to be
Yeah.
it's going to come down to whether or not only, I mean, obviously you're still going to be able to or have to be a good recruiter for high school kids, but you're gonna be able to roster build a lot during the off seasons now. and plug in a lot of the holes. I mean, we even tried to do it this year. Like, I don't think we didn't land the best transfer class or anything, but we even did it. Like TCU did it after we lost Duggan, Kendre, like QJ. Like, we brought in a really good receiving class. Like in the portal, we brought in Trey Sanders as a running back from Alabama. Chandler Morris, I know this is like he came in like 3 years ago, but I mean, even then, like everyone, all the key pieces, Jared Wiley, tight end, like all the key pieces on this team, whether or not they're super good or not, they're all
a lot of transfers.
all of them.
Luis, what's a? Oh, go ahead, Brayden. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just like kind of the last thing on that from my end at least is I think that we're going to see Nick Saban slip. I give him probably 3 more years or so, and it could end even sooner than that before he decides to ride off into the sunset. But I'm telling you, I like the direction that Tennessee is going. Now, I still think that they have a lot of gaps to fill, and I think there's also a culture problem there. And I think that
they just lost to Florida, didn't they?
Yeah. They haven't won at Florida since 2003. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so, but I think it is Georgia's world, and everybody else is just like there's A tier, B tier, whatever. But Georgia's S tier, and I think Kirby. I think he's a fantastic recruiter and overall coach, and I think he is and he's also, keep in mind, he comes from the Nick Saban system. That's who he learned under it. But I just think Nick Saban is losing his touch, and so when I look at this. Whatever it's these Alabama games, especially the one against Texas, man. I think Texas is going to take a step up, and I mean, I know y'all are OU fans, and I think Texas is not back, but they're going to be in the next couple
even
of
after
years.
That performance against Wyoming and knowing that they beat a Bama team that's not the same Bama.
I agree. Trust me, and
you don't think that they're getting just a little too much high? Like, I'm not trying to say they're not good, and I think that they are good, and I actually want them to be good. The rivalry between them and Oklahoma is better when both teams are good. I firmly believe that.
Yeah,
but
no, you're right.
I still think there's a little too much hype around them.
I'll say this much. First off, I wouldn't consider myself an Oklahoma fan. I'd consider myself an Oklahoma admirer from a distance. But anyways, going back to Texas, dude, yeah, I think Texas is good. And I think what also helps them out is that the Big 12 looks terrible this year.
So bad.
It looks
so bad.
We are like the Big 12. And because I don't give a shit saying this.
State just lost to Missouri and Oklahoma State.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about that game. But first, let me just say something about the Big 12. Like, I don't care about the whole conference pride thing like most SEC and ACC and other conference fans have. I actively root against other Big 12 teams. I don't care. But yeah, I think what Texas has going for them is that the rest of the conference is terrible right now. I mean, we'll see if someone wakes up and emerges to compete against OU and Texas, but it also comes down to whether or not Quinn Ewers is consistent. Because you know how we talked about I don't know if it was even you. I was talking about it with someone else about how Ewers, on a day where he's playing great, he's popping off, right? The Alabama game, the OU game last year. And then games where he's not on it, it's the other end of the spectrum. Against Wyoming, he went 11 of 21 and threw for 131. Wyoming actually had, Texas had about 30 more passing yards than Wyoming, which isn't that much. And actually, wait, sorry. On the contrary, Texas they had more yards than Wyoming by 30. But Wyoming had more passing yards than Texas that whole game, despite losing 31-10, and that blew my mind. I was like, wow, this guy went 11 of 21. That's not that good. And yeah, we can give Wyoming a little bit of credit because they beat Texas and they were 10-10 going into the fourth, but it's still Wyoming, right? That's not the caliber of team that they're going to have to play in a New Year's Six or a playoff situation or even the Big 12 championship. So I do agree with Cole a little bit. I do think they're getting maybe a little bit too much hype. But the thing is, if they get fraud checked, I don't know if it'll even happen until later in the season, just because the rest of the Big 12 is so down. Like you have to count. You have to count on someone like TCU or K State like rising to the occasion. I mean, they play Baylor next week. Baylor might be one of the 3 worst teams in the conference, bro. They were 0-2. They were 0-2, and they were like barely beating the Long Island University Sharks at halftime by like 1 score. The stadium cleared out. There was no fans in the stadium after that. Like, it was, granted they had a weather delay, but still, like, Baylor looks like a terrible place to be right now. And that's who they're playing next. And I looked at the FPI, and I know the FPI, it's not super reliable, like the ESPN FPI. I shit on it all the time.
It makes no sense.
They have but they gave Texas a 95% chance to win in Waco, which is like normally it wouldn't be that high, but
No.
yeah.
Real quick, because
they're 2 or 3 years away from, I think, ascending into an A tier level team. The thing is when you have as much money and influence over not just like your conference, but college football in general, all this realignment bullshit we have to blame Texas for. That, like, point blank, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, this all started with the Longhorn Network and their greed, but they're going to have the money, and that's all this is turning into, is basically just a boat race of who can basically pay the most and have the most NIL. So they're on their way. And are they doing it the most ethical or like traditional way? I think they're kind of just making their own way, and they're just buying their way. It's like the Pony Express, but like on a scale that like SMU could only ever dream of. So I think that's the direction they're trending. But I do agree. I think right now they look like they're playing in a conference where everyone kind of looks like a schmuck, but they played Alabama, which I think looks just like a bunch of they kind of flop, and I don't think like the wake up call has come yet for the rest of the country about just like what their strength of schedule actually looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing too is like, and this is why we still give Texas like their flowers, because it is Tuscaloosa, and they'd only lost there 4 times before to in the Nick Saban era to teams that ended up being the Natty winners, the Natty runners up, or had a Heisman winner on their team. Like, they don't lose in Tuscaloosa ever. So, I mean, we'll see. Like, if Bama goes 6-6, then I'll be like, all right, bro, like that's like really inflated. It kind of reminds me of 2016 when they beat Notre Dame at home, when Notre Dame was like number 10 week 1. Mm-hmm. And then I'm not saying this is going to happen, but like Notre Dame ended up going like 6-6 that year. And then Texas went 5-7. And that's not what's going to happen. They're not going 5-7, and Bama probably won't go 6-6. But I only bring that up because that one game, like this one, inflated their stock like through the roof.
Brought so much hype, brought so much unnecessary hype.
Yeah,
but it was like it was like you kind of had to run with it. Like it was a big deal at the time. Real quick before I forget, Luis, I texted you that I wanted to tell you about a stat that I saw. Do you remember that?
Yeah, tell me. I have no idea.
It was about Oklahoma State. Did you guys see how much money they paid South Alabama to play that game?
I'm gonna guess 780,000.
No, it had to be more.
Oh no. Oh wow. Okay, I guess this isn't going to be that big of a shock to you guys then.
Well, how much did they pay?
It was. I think it was $300,000.
Oh,
Baylor paid Texas State more than that.
Yeah,
but they paid South Alabama $300,000 to come in and roll them.
Yeah, they got
lost by what, 30?
They got. I think they lost like 30. I didn't even watch that game. I just saw the score and saw it was like 30-7 or something crazy. Like they got rolled.
So bad. Luis, did I not say that Oklahoma State was arguably going to be the worst team in the Big 12?
Well, okay. Yeah, we both, because when we were making our preseason predictions, we both agreed that Oklahoma State was going to be terrible this year. And I think I predicted them to go like 4-8. But you did say they could be like just the worst in the Big 12 period, even with these new additions. So, dude, I don't know. That's not good.
They might not win a game for the rest of the season.
I don't know what their schedule looks like. I don't even care about to look, but yeah, they look terrible.
Can
Iowa
you
State will
say what?
Iowa State will be there with them. I just think that that is just like a former like they are just a shell of their former selves at that program as well.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Did you hear about what happened with Matt Campbell?
wait, with all the
Oh,
gambling stuff.
no, no, well, yeah, like half their team is gone because they're gambling.
Uh,
But no, dude.
Good
Apparently,
on them.
I was
It's a
talking to
good
my
thing Chase doesn't play for Iowa State.
buddy Ryan and my other buddy Jack. Shout out Ryan and Jack, and they were. I think one of them brought up how he was walking like back to the locker room or something. I don't know if this was at halftime, end of the game, before the game, and he's walking past the section where there's fans that are like right there, and apparently someone he got in a fight with a fan because they like
Matt
were like,
Campbell?
yeah, Matt Campbell. Apparently he was like someone screamed it and they're like, "You're
No.
on the hot seat, you're on the hot seat," and he like took that
What?
personally and like was about to like fight this dude, and I'm like, come on, man, like
He went
you're
full Michigan State mode.
I'm like, come on, bro. Like you gotta just like not even listen to that and go back to the locker room. Like that's a bad look for you to actually give into it
Jeez.
though.
Gosh
Yeah.
dang, dude, like it's like what was that one fan saying that you're not hearing probably like because well were they no they weren't on the road though because I'm like if they're on the road I'm like the opposing fan like student section is going to be sitting there the whole game chirping anyway. It's like so I don't even know, that's ridiculous though. Like and I think just like CU has taken on the persona of their coach, and arguably there's more dick riding of a coach right now for CU than there's ever been. But like the team does take on that mentality and persona. So if that's what your coach is squatting down to, then I don't know that it's going to be a long season for them.
Yeah, it's
Matt
dude,
Campbell is Matt Campbell is the perfect example of taking your money and running. Dude, when he had all of those offers, like all the hype was around him to go and coach a bigger program, my God, he should have taken it. He should have done it. He should have just taken the money and ran.
well, I mean, yeah, it aged well with like Matt Rule, for example, when he was taken off at Baylor and then he dipped. Like he just dipped
Yep.
on them to go to the Panthers. So I don't know, dude. The Big 12 looks terrible right now. I kind of want to segue into the K State Mizzou game because I was ecstatic with the way that ended. For one, K State did not look that good. Will Howard, I think he has looked way more average than because I was gassing him up all the entire offseason because he looked really good last year. Like the two
Yep.
games I saw him play against TCU, and he was like low key torching us. And then, I mean, now he doesn't have as many weapons. He doesn't have Deuce Vaughn. He looks okay. He doesn't look awful, but he doesn't look like he did last year. But dude, the way that game ended, with the 61-yard walk off, might have been one of the craziest things I've seen this season thus far.
I think Kansas is going to go in there and beat them. Kansas State. I'm calling it. Kansas, I'm telling you, I am so impressed with them, and I don't care what the result of their games look like. I don't care that they just lost this last week, but I'm telling you,
No, they
I'm not.
won.
They what?
They won. They're 3-0.
Oh, they did. Okay, I thought they lost this last week, but they brought back literally like it's almost like almost every single position has a starter, and each starter from Skinner to Neal to Fairchild to Jalen or I always get Jaden and Jalen Daniels mixed up. I can't remember the
This one's
LSU.
It's I
Jaden.
think this one's wait, is it Jalen or Jaden at
No,
Kansas?
Jaden is LSU. Jalen is Kansas.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
I honestly I think I like them, and I think that the Wisconsin White River, whatever the hell the name of that university is that all their coaching staff came from, like I kind of like the way they run that offense, and like Mizzou, like they're not really anything that impressive. I mean, they are scraping bottom of the barrel SEC, and I think Kansas is poised to go make a statement. And they also just I don't know that program I'm actually kind of a fan of, it's like shouldn't be. I have no real reason to, but I kind of like to see them like be a phoenix
Mm-mm.
rise from the ashes and like kind of turn into something that actually is somewhat of a presentable product for college football.
Dog,
Mm-mm.
I'm
I've
gonna.
got some Matt. I've got some beef with Missouri right now
What's your beef with them?
because Williams Nwaneri. So Williams Nwaneri is the
English, please.
number one
What?
ranked. He's the number one ranked player in the class of 2024. Defensive lineman, and he was widely projected to go to Oklahoma. I mean, it was tight between Oklahoma and Missouri throughout the entire race, but experts were like, okay, I think this is leaning in Oklahoma's favor. Missouri, the state of Missouri, not the school, the state of Missouri passed a new law um, regarding NIL legislation. And don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% like familiar with the law because I don't really care about the state of Missouri all that much.
I got a pen
But
and paper. I'm taking notes.
from what I've gathered about the new law, it basically is a cheat code for NIL and like in-state schools. So if you're a kid that lives in the state of Missouri, like Williams Nwaneri, he lives in Missouri. He goes to Lee Summit North. Apparently, if you are an in-state kid and you decide to go to an in-state university, then you get these extra bonuses with NIL. And from what I've gathered, it's that you can start earning the NIL immediately. Like you don't even have to be in college yet. Like
Mm-hmm.
as soon as he's now committed to Missouri, just a verbal, he can now start making NIL money from Missouri.
Is is
So
that even?
Missouri came in and dropped a bag. Like I've heard 7-figure numbers at this defensive lineman. And Oklahoma was just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like we're not going to compromise like our entire NIL budget and drop 7 figures on this one defensive lineman. Like this is stupid. So he committed to Missouri. So I've got some beef with Missouri right now because of that.
They got that
That's
one receiver at Missouri that was like supposed he's nasty, and he scored that game that touchdown to get send it into to tie the game. But it was a similar thing. But I think that it
Are
was
you talking
more.
about Theo Weiss?
Theo Weiss Jr.
Is that maybe? Well, I don't know what his name is. I just
Because
know
he
that he was.
transferred in from Oklahoma.
Well, I
Oh
will say
no,
this: Theo Weiss Jr. was low key cooking him. Like he had like 6 receptions for like 80 yards. Like it wasn't insane or anything, but he was like, I mean, he had some crucial like catches down the stretch.
no, because this guy wasn't. He wasn't a transfer. He was straight out. He's from Missouri, straight out of high school, and went straight to Mizzou. And like people were like really impressed or like making a big deal because he decided to stay home. And versus, I think he was choosing between. It was something like Georgia.
Oh, you talking about Luther Burden?
There we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Seven receptions for 114 and 2 tubs. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, shit.
He's no, the dude's nasty. But I wonder because it was before NIL was when he did that. But I
Hmm.
mean, I remember because I was listening to some other podcast, and I don't know which one it was. Trying to remember, but I know Florida State got investigated for this, where they were paying kids that weren't even committed yet, or like these kids weren't giving any verbal commitments yet in high school, and like they were sending kids. It was like every week. I think it was like $8,000 a week just to like basically stay in the conversation.
What?
Yeah, they're like, yeah, they're like, yo, like, hey, like, just keep us in mind, type of thing. Like, we don't need anything. Just like when it comes time to make your decision, commitment day or signing day, they're like, yeah, just like keep us in mind. And the kid didn't end up. And the guy that did the podcast was like going to keep the kid's name hush hush because it was technically illegal. But he's like, he did like a whole conference with him and just basically like gave him like a John Doe name, and he's like, but that the kid ended up committing. I think it was like to Oregon or something, but that Florida State was like right there in the mix, just sending him like $8,000 a week to like basically be guaranteed a top 3 consideration for a school commitment.
Even if you're not,
Jeez.
I mean, why? How would that even be worth it to do? Because like that kid can
Yeah, it
just
just
say, yeah.
sounds stupid.
That kid is just going to say, "Yeah, sure, I'll throw you in my top three," and then he'll just choose between the other two. Like
Exactly. Well, and that's
like that's such a
literally what he
stupid
did.
thing.
I don't know, but like I'm telling you, it's the Wild West right now for NIL, and like Mizzou. I'm surprised in Missouri, and I wouldn't be shocked if other states did. I bet they give some sort of tax incentive to those kids or something like that. But it's the Wild West right now, and you can kind of go do whatever you want right now because the rules aren't necessarily written. So this is kind of, I feel like, a time where schools can kind of jump ahead and position themselves, and then no one can come back later and they're like, well, that wasn't legal or ethical. They're like, well, there's no laws, or it was like we're kind of just free balling. Like we don't need to worry. Like we'll wait and see what laws come later. But right now, like we're kind of writing our own rules.
Yeah, I'm not a. I mean, I get it's part of the game now, but there's got to be some kind of governing body over this. It doesn't.
Well, what are your thoughts on
It's just turning into professional sports.
it? Is
Um,
and it's
I mean,
trickling down to the high schoolers now.
yeah, and it's not. I just don't feel like it's that ethical. And they're still kids, and they're inevitably going to get taken advantage of. They're already being taken
Yeah,
advantage
look
of,
at your well, like
and it's just
now
I
the
don't know.
transfer portal now is already like kind of screwing people over. Jorquarius Spivey from TCU to Mississippi State, and then the guy Quez Walker, North Carolina. Like that's where they've decided to like stake their go up, walk up a hill and put a stake in the ground and say we're going to die on this hill. The transfer portal, but NIL, no one's really like made like done anything about it.
I actually kind of have a theory about this that I haven't. It's more of an internal theory that I've had. I haven't really talked to anybody about it, but I have a theory that a lot of these schools that are kind of paving the way with NIL, you look at like Texas A&M, Texas, uh, Oregon, who else? Florida State.
Tennessee.
You're gonna Tennessee, sure, USC. Um, you're gonna see those schools have some pretty solid success for a little bit, and people are gonna be like, "Wow, this is the new way. This is it." And then all of a sudden, something's gonna happen. I don't know what it is, but like inevitably, some kind of bubble is gonna just burst, and then you're gonna see these teams that have been right there with them, but that have been playing it like a long con. Teams like Alabama, Georgia, who's probably still going to be good no matter what, Oklahoma, those teams like your traditional blue bloods, and they're going to be like, we knew that was going to happen, and nothing's happening to us, and we're still right here, consistently going up. Where these other teams that I mentioned, they're like this, they're skyrocket real quick, but then it's just going to be a fucking right back down. Does that make
I
sense?
It does. I think that speaks like literally to like kind of the point I just made of right now it's the Wild West, and until something gets set in place and there's rules established, like people are going to try
Mm-hmm.
and take advantage right now because there's nothing holding them back. I think one thing that I read about, and I've like my one internal theory I had was so, and this is interesting because I looked up the stat. Well, I want to see if y'all will guess this. Across the board, and I'm not talking about just football, though mainly I am just talking about football, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. What if y'all had to guess, what is the most profitable school per NCAA athlete in terms of like revenue generated?
Profit?
Yeah, how much profit is generated across all sports with every athlete? Like, what is the most profitable overall
It's probably
athletic?
Texas.
I was going to say Texas.
Notre Dame.
Hmm.
And the reason why, and this is where it gets really
They don't have
interesting.
they don't share. They don't share anything.
Well, not only that, they're completely privately funded, and
Yeah, they're
therefore,
100%. It's just them.
and they're also not debt funded. And that's something that is really interesting because every public university that you name drop, Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, Tennessee, like the Texas A&M, all those schools, they're all funded by debt. Kansas, if you go look, because I was actually trying to sell their stadium project that was at my former job, and that was something that we were looking into. If you go and look, it's basically it was all taxpayer money, but there's not enough revenue there. So basically, they're just borrowing debt to go finance those things, and it's all through the state. And there's I was trying to read this, and the guy didn't have a complete theory, so that's where I'm trying to fill in my own fill in the holes with my own stuff to understand, and I don't have a full answer. But with any sort of change of administration in Congress and the Senate and in Washington or even on a state level, the funding can fluctuate, and basically interest rates can also fuck these teams over because they're not privately funded. They are just basically leveraged in debt up to the tits. So it's really interesting how the USCs and the Notre Dames and the TCUs and the SMUs that are schools that have wealthy donor bases, they're not allowed to be leveraged to the tits in debt because they have to be privately funded, which can also potentially become something to take into consideration once NIL laws are starting to get put in place. And there eventually is going to be a day of reckoning where all the people that are owed money are going to come knocking at the door and be like, yo, time to pay up. I think Texas A&M owes, it's over a couple $1 billion worth of debt for everything across their athletic department.
Oh my god.
Bro,
And they're
they
not
might
doing
be
anything to show for it.
they might be one of the first ones to collapse if that happens.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at it, yeah, their stadium is the house that Johnny built, but if you look at how it actually was paid for, it was all
Mm.
just Texas taxpayers were the ones that paid for it. But it's really really interesting if you look at it and I always think I'm curious to see, and if that day of reckoning comes, I'm like, it'll take, if we thought realignment in NIL was a crazy revelation in the sport, that would flip everything on its head.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what you're saying is that the day of reckoning is going to come, and then Notre Dame is going to pull a 50s, 60s Boston Celtics and win 11 championships.
They could, because and they've always been that way. That's they're always been positioned for this. They remain in that position, and that's why they're comfortably cruising. They have complete autonomy over
They
their
look
future.
good this year too.
Oh, for
Dude,
sure. This
Kenny
is the best
Hartman,
they've looked.
oh, man.
Yeah, he is. This is the
Um,
best they've looked in a long time.
But for those first 3 quarters of that TCU game, looking at the score, I'm satisfied with the score. But dude, I think there's still some areas that we need to clean up. I think we haven't been doing that great of a job protecting the ball. I think Chandler himself is looking pretty decent. He's been looking good, but I don't know how I'm feeling about some of the play calling at times. We're not protecting the ball. I don't know. I feel like we're making a habit out of leaving points off the board, because there was maybe 3 or 4 drives during that game where we had the momentum to put some points up on the board, and we just ended up turning the ball over on downs or throwing a pick on a terrible, drawn up play. So I don't know. What were your thoughts on that game?
I thought Chandler was looked the most comfortable that he's ever looked in a TCU uniform outside of his one Baylor game, and I think he's been riding the the momentum of that game, and it's just the whole way that Chandler. I've never been a believer in Chandler, and I've said that since day one he stepped on campus. And I was at Chipotle once, actually outside of campus, and he was in line behind us, and I was with Andrew Stottle, and he's like, bro, he goes, Chandler Morris is behind us. And it was last year. And I like turn around and I look, I'm like, that dude, that's the quarterback. I'm like, bro, I'm like, he looks like he's like some Kappa Sig that is like coming back from like a Darty and is like kind of like hungover, like, and like it just looks like your average Joe Schmo. And he looked better. He had a couple of longer balls that looked like that he had a little bit more control and a nicer touch on than what I've normally seen. Some of his scrambling and his pocket presence, it's still a little panicky, and I don't love that. His first instinct is if his first read is not there, and if the second read isn't like immediately obvious, then he's just going to take off. But the thing is like I don't think he has like a good feel for any sort of spies that are watching him or any sort of pursuit that is coming from behind, and that it can lead him to get into some kind of precarious situations. And when he does scramble and is successful, like it looks good, and we're like, oh, okay, like that's good. And I just think a lot of it is dumb luck. Truth be told. I think Amani Bailey looks good. I wish our O line were to be able to actually step up in the trenches and have a little bit more control, because I feel like that we're not fully tapping into that.
Luis sent me a text yesterday basically saying it was like one of the only text messages that would come through, and it was just like, bro, Monty Bailey is a dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I completely
dude.
buy into that.
Yeah, so really quick, touching on Morris, bro. I to the contrary, I actually have loved the way he's been able to scramble because he's so much more elusive thus far, at least, than Duggan was. Because Duggan, like, his strength was
Fast.
his strength was like if he gets enough space and he has a lane and he takes off, you're not catching him. But Morris is more just like elusive in those areas, like in the pocket where he's about, dude. There was, I think he only got sacked once, and it was on the fumble, like in the first or second quarter.
Yeah,
But outside of that, because I mean that was on his O line, not protecting him. But outside of that, there was a couple times where I was like, oh god, he's about to get sacked, and he just perfectly like evaded it and took off for like 10 to 12 yards. And dude, I think our offense kept going down the field more so just because of him than the actual play calling, because there was some play calling that was kind of questionable. But anyways, moving on back to Manny Bailey. Yeah, dude, I've loved him. Even like last year when he got a couple games, he was averaging like 9 yards a carry last year, and this year so far he's averaging 5.5, which isn't too bad. But when he's elusive, he's fast. I like him. Trey Sanders also looked pretty good on that one touchdown he scored. But yeah, I don't know. We do need to clean up a little bit of things because I mean we got SMU next, and that it's a toss up at this point. Like I would have felt way more comfortable before the season started, but we'll see. I hope this is the game where we finally just like get everything together and pull it off, and we look at our best, because through 3 games I don't think we've had a single game where we've looked up to our potential. But anyways, now that Cole's back, we can dive a little bit into the Oklahoma game. Cole, do you want to just hear my thoughts?
Yeah, dude, because like I said, I didn't get to watch the game. Obviously, I was a little upset, but um, from the stat sheet that I saw and from the few highlights that I saw, big names, Nick Anderson. I heard Nick Anderson had like a Randy Moss type performance, 3 catches, over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns. Um, Obviously, Dylan Gabriel had a monster game, 5 touchdowns, 400 plus yards. I think he had like 2 or 3 incompletions the whole game. We finally got to see a little bit of Javante Barnes. The running back room, the first 2 games, it was very clear that Jeff Levy wanted to give Marcus Major and Tawi Walker their touches, and this game, I don't think they actually got a single touch. It was all Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk. So yeah, I want to, and
shout out
obviously the
Colorado
defense.
boy.
What the defense had? What 4 interceptions? 5 interceptions?
5.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just Dive in.
Yeah, so I watched a little bit of that game, and then when Oklahoma finally started to pull away by way more points, I kind of stopped watching. But I went back and watched the highlights to fill myself in on the spots that I missed. I'm gonna be straight up with you, Cole. Oklahoma might only be like the 5th best team in the Big 12. They look awful.
Not,
They
I know you're just fucking with me.
I'm trolling. I'm
Yeah.
trolling. But yeah, to your point, yeah, Dylan Gabriel went 28 of 31 for 421, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, which, I mean, at that point in the game, it was one of those, like, they were just trying to take another shot to run up the score. And it was a great interception. Like, it wasn't like a bad pass or anything. But yeah, dude, the defense picked off their quarterback 3 times in the first quarter and ended up with 5 total interceptions. Like, they were just on it. Like, yes, Tulsa didn't look too good themselves, but they're still an FBS team, and they beat them 66-17. I was looking at some of the highlights, bro. Dylan Gabriel was throwing dots, like straight dots. There was one touchdown where Stoops, little Drake Stoops, that's his name, right?
Drake Stoops.
Little Drake Stoops is like running towards like the corner of the end zone, and he threw like a perfect dot, like right in his hands. He was accurate all day. I was really impressed by Oklahoma. I think it just reinforces like this assumption that we have that Texas and OU are just going to be the 2 best teams in the conference, and they're probably going to end up playing each other in Arlington at the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know like what else there is to say about that game. Like from what I watched, like they looked really good. They looked dominant. They looked better than Texas. I mean, if you're accounting for the competition, because Quinn Ewers went 11 of 21. And I know like Wyoming is Wyoming, but I mean Tulsa is Tulsa, and they clapped them. Like they did what Texas was supposed to do to Wyoming.
Yeah.
And they were also playing it at Tulsa.
So here's my question. Hold on, let me do a little bit of math real quick. As of right now, Oklahoma is outscoring opponents 167 to 28. 167 to 28 over their first 3 games. They have a top 5 offense in the country, and they have a top 5 defense in the country. They premiered at number 16 in the nation today, up 3 spots from number 19 last week. Does Oklahoma look like the 16th best team in the nation?
No, I think they look better.
Where would you put them?
I obviously they haven't had a real test, right? I mean, you can maybe say SMU, but SMU is a team where like we still don't even know like much about them yet, right? But I think Oklahoma, if I was making an AP ballot, I might have slot them in around like 12, 13,
Okay.
You know. I do think like I don't see a problem with them putting them at 16, because at the end of the day they rose 3 spots, but I do think that they're probably going to catch a couple people by surprise, because I mean after last year and going where'd they go 6 and 7?
After the bowl game,
I don't think anyone has expectations for Oklahoma except Oklahoma, and that's what's going to catch everyone off guard, especially if they win that Red River game and make a statement. I mean, no one, because I feel like no one's really even been talking about Oklahoma just because of last year.
Nobody. Love it.
But dude, and you want to know who else? He played very little. He only had 4 passing attempts. But Jackson Arnold came in and he threw a really good touchdown pass.
Where do we know that name from? Where did he come from?
He's
Jackson Arnold was a 5-star quarterback out of Denton Guyer.
Yeah, okay, no, he was really good. Anderson looked good. Farouk had like 6 receptions. I'm looking at it. He had 6 receptions for 126 in a tub. Nick Anderson had 3 tubs.
You know who Nick Anderson is, right?
Huh?
You know who Nick Anderson is, right?
Well, what do you mean? Like, who is he?
It's Rodney Anderson's little brother.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, you remember Rodney Anderson?
Yeah.
It's his little brother.
I didn't know that. They had 3
and also
receivers.
Brayden, I love Gavin Sawchuk, by the way. He's out of Littleton, right?
No, yeah, he went to Valor, so he went to the same high school Christian McCaffrey did.
God, I love Gavin. He's good, bro. He's a dog.
Won
Yeah.
2 state championships, I believe, in Colorado. Like, he was the guy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
hearing you say that about Oklahoma makes me feel really good
yeah,
because
and obviously, again,
people are
going
sleeping
off.
on them.
Yeah, going off of what I said earlier, like obviously I'm an Oklahoma admirer from a distance. Like I've always liked watch. Oklahoma's been one of those teams that I like watching because they usually always have an explosive quarterback and an explosive offense that's fun to watch. Because when I first started getting into college football, I mean that's what you know Oklahoma for, like the last 20, 15 years. Um, but yeah, I mean I'll leave it at that. They looked really good. I think people are a lot of people on game day, for example, I guarantee you they're all going to pick Texas. I guarantee it.
100%.
And
Yeah.
I hope they
I'll make
do.
that
By the
pick.
way, I hope they
I,
do.
I'm gonna reveal that pick later whenever that week comes. But yeah, I guess do we want to move on, because I know we're an hour in. Do we want to move on to our Bozo tracker and then finish it off with a couple of picks for next week?
Yeah, you want to explain what the Bozo Tracker is to
Yeah.
Brayden?
So
Go ahead and just explain it in general because this is the first episode that
so
we're
Brayden,
introducing.
Brayden, we've got a new thing that we're trying to do, where we started it out with Bozo of the Week, but now you're just going to get assigned Bozo points whenever you have like a freezing cold take or make a wrong prediction. And so I constructed a Bozo tracker for Chase, Cole, and myself for us to keep ourselves accountable and trash on each other whenever we're making bad picks or saying stupid shit. Because at the end of the day, this is what this podcast is about. But I constructed this little. Let me just screen share and show you what this is about.
Yeah. Let me get a college football. While you do that, I want to get a college football schedule ready to go for next week, and I want to see. I'll give you. I have no problem stepping into the ring and start throwing out some haymakers to see. Oh, okay, I like
Bozo
it.
Tracker.
So introducing the Rub and Tubs Bozo tracker. To keep our hosts accountable, we're gonna dive right into it with our first edition of the tracker. we've got Chase after week 3 updates. Need anything else? We've got eight bozo points assigned to Chase. This is something. I mean, we kind of edited it out of episode 2, but I mean, need anything else be said? Chase, you've earned. Whenever you listen to this, you've earned your. How many do we have for him now? 8 bozo points. He actually had 9, but I took one away because I feel bad. Anyways, Cole, you and I, we both earned ourselves a bozo point for both of us last week. Brayden, we both predicted Wyoming upsets. Cole actually said that they were going to. Yeah, we were going to. I predicted them winning off a game-winning field goal, and Cole, I think, said like 34-17 or something. We were just trying to shit on Texas.
We were close to a Wyoming upset.
Yeah, and then I also gave myself a second bozo point because I predicted Colorado was just going to beat the dog shit out of Colorado State. I didn't think that game was going to be as close as it was. I do think that Jay Norvell should have gone for it on 4th down on that last drive. I think he's a coward for that. And I also think number 8 on defense, I don't remember his name, but he sold with those 2 penalties.
Yeah.
So far on the Bozo tracker, we've got Chase leading the way with 8. I'm second at 2, and Cole's earned him his first one with his first Bozo point of the season. So we'll definitely come back to this and keep adding Bozo points to it as we go. So that's the Bozo tracker.
Oh God.
I think you guys got something on that, like something there.
We gotta clip that to our Instagram.
100%. Anyways, I made a list of 6 matchups because the slate next week is kind of stacked. Do you want to just go through them one by one and like give a couple of like short thoughts and predictions for it?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about who we think is gonna win.
All right. First matchup, we've got number 4 Florida State playing at Clemson.
Florida State, 100%.
Dude, there's no way. Like, all right, so they play Boston College this week. Keep in mind it was the red bandana game, which is a big deal, and they usually show out they were on the road at Boston College, and I think Boston College is actually a more respectable team than people give them credit for. They command more respect than, in my book, than your typical ACC team. I think Florida State is going to take. I think Johnny Wilson had a pretty horrific game, all things considered, for his standard, and he still had a good game. I think he was like, his over-under was like only 51 yards, and I know he crushed that. And Jordan Travis is a dog. Like, that team is stacked, and I think everyone should look for them to be in the college football playoff. Clemson,
Yeah, I
I think,
agree.
are fraud.
I agree. I think that where is that game, Luis? Is it in
At
Clemson?
Clemson.
It's at Clemson.
Yeah, I still think Florida State goes in. I think they win by at least 2 scores, probably 3 or 4 scores.
17. I'm calling up 17.
Yeah. I also picked Florida
What?
State. I concur with everything you just said. I just think even whether or not like Florida is actually the number 4 team in the country, because that's where they're ranked now, I don't buy Clemson anymore. I haven't bought them for about a year. I mean, even last year I was kind of right because I went on record saying that they were going to fall off, and then they did. But, yeah, matchup number 2, we've got, this is the juicy one. Number 19, Colorado at number 10, Oregon. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but thoughts?
I'll give my pick, and I'll call where is it?
It's
At Oregon.
Yeah, I think that for some reason I think it'll be close, but I think it'll be Oregon that wins it.
Oh, man. Because the thing is, like, without Travis Hunter, like, that's obviously a big, big thing. I'm going to say, you know what? And it's kind of went against what I said at the beginning of the podcast, but just thinking about it, like, at Oregon, and Oregon is just, like, they're poised to try to make some noise, and I feel like that everyone is going to give Dion their best shot because they want to shut him up, and they want to steal that thunder, and especially without Travis Hunter. I mean, Colorado State, dude, like, they kind of exposed the defense. I mean, Colorado's defense was porous, and Colorado State wasn't good either, but, like, that was to be expected from them. I mean, I do think, what's the spread? Because I could also.
That's what I wanted to know.
I kind of think moneyline Oregon, and I think Oregon actually could cover the spread. I think they might come out and make some noise. If Travis Hunter was playing, he is a little bit of a game changer. But I don't think Shedeur he's got Weaver and Edwards, and Edwards was getting eaten alive by Colorado State's defensive line, and I don't know. I think I'm going with Oregon.
Colorado.
I like Oregon money line and Colorado +8.
Dude, right now the line is Colorado plus 19.5.
Oh, hammer that.
Oregon, give me Oregon.
Just depends on whether or not you buy Oregon and how much you buy Colorado, I guess.
I would hammer Colorado
weather-wise,
plus 19.
If it's even remotely wet outside because it's the Pacific Northwest, I think that just is going to play a huge factor. Colorado does like to spread it out and throw to the flats. They're not super, like, they don't like to take a ton of deep shots, but, like, I don't think their running game, especially, is like anything that impressive. I think that, yeah, give me
Dylan
Oregon.
Edwards is at his best when he's in like the RPO action or he's getting hit in the flat or dump passes.
Exactly. Yep.
So last week I said I think Colorado is going to upset one of the two between Oregon and USC. And I in part made that call because I'm not scared of the Bozo Tracker because Chase has got a 7 Bozo lead on me.
We can make some risks. We can take some risks.
But I'm here to tell you right now, we ain't coming. We here. And I think that Colorado, after that performance they put in against Colorado State, they're going to catch everyone by surprise again. They're going to go into Oregon. And I'm picking them to upset Oregon because I don't think they're going to beat USC. And I already said last week they're going to upset one of the two. So I'm sticking to my word. I'm not scared of the Bozo Tracker.
I think you should be.
I'm not scared of the Bozo Tracker because Chase is probably going to earn himself another 3 bozos in the next 7 hours alone, depending on whatever he's doing. I'm taking Colorado. Next matchup, we can fly through this one. Don't have to talk too much about it because we already talked a little bit about Alabama. But number 15, Ole Miss at number 13, Alabama.
I'll stick with you, Luis. I'm not afraid of the Bozo Tracker right now. I'm in first place. I'll take Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss right there.
I do also, but like at the same time, I'm looking at like Nick Saban made Lane Kiffin, and like I feel like that he knows what he's got and up his sleeve. I think that Lane Kiffin is like the drunk uncle and white version of Dion, and I just think that Saban is going to like smack some sense into this team. The only question is like Milroe. It's just quarterback play. If Alabama has the quarterback play, then like I don't see where Ole Miss has any sort of advantage. But if that piece can't come together, then Ole Miss can jump all over it. So because Alabama, the thing is like their defense isn't letting up a ton of points. It's just a matter of Alabama's offense just isn't putting up that many points. And I'm going to go with Alabama. I'm going to say they cover the spread and they win.
Okay. I'm going Ole Miss as well. Cool. Let's quick fire these last.
Let's go.
Let's quick fire these last couple ones. There's 3 more. Number 22 UCLA at number 11 Utah. I'm going Utah.
Where is
at
it?
Utah.
Oh yeah, I'm going with Utah as well.
When is Cam Rising coming back? Because that's what I keep asking myself.
I don't even care. I think Utah takes care of business.
I wouldn't care about that. Utah's looked pretty good without him so far, and I think that they'll continue that. And I think that when they get him back, they're going to be really dangerous.
I'll go with that. I just am not a believer in UCLA football, just in general. I don't know if it's well founded.
Chase won't like to hear you say that, but
Chase sent me his picks for these matchups via text message before we hopped on, and he picked UCLA. So I very much look forward to adding more Bozo points to his.
Wow.
To his. But number 14, Oregon State at number 21, Washington State.
Oregon State. I'm a believer. I believe.
All right,
Oregon State.
That's a tough game. I feel like that's kind of a toss-up.
It's a toss-up.
I think DJ. I don't think it's even close. I think Oregon State will wipe the floor.
Interesting.
Okay.
It's at Washington
Oregon
State
wins.
It's at.
I don't care.
Okay.
I think DJ. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's finally kind of finding a system that's working. Oregon State is number 1 in the country for offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
I think they're going to wipe the floor with them.
Well,
yeah. I'd go Oregon State as well, but I do think that it'll probably be a close game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going Oregon State. I also believe in DJ, so we'll see. The last one we've got
DJ Ukulele.
Yeah, we've got number 6. This is the juiciest one in my opinion, from a football purist standpoint. We've got number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Notre Dame.
Yes, Notre Dame.
Give me Notre Dame.
Give me Sam Hartman.
Yep, Notre Dame.
Give me Sam Hartman.
Give me Sam Hartman. I'm a believer, bro. I've been telling everyone I think he's a man, and it's not only just because he's got a luscious beard, but he's
a lumberjack.
He is a lumberjack, and he's also got the best play calling signs on the sideline too, if you know what I mean. So I'm taking Sam Hartman, bro, and I think Ohio State's look pretty good, but I'm taking Sam Hartman, and I think he's dropping 303 tubs.
I actually think Ohio State has been, especially mainly their offense. I think their offense has been kind of underwhelming.
Chase also picked Ohio State, by the way.
Oh, my God.
Beautiful.
Marvin Harrison Jr. and then a bunch of random guys they found on the corner by 7-Eleven.
Jesus.
I'm
That's
taking
hilarious.
Notre Dame all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Notre Dame there.
I like Notre Dame. Well, it looks like we've got our picks. I see a little bit of variability. I mean, we all picked FSU. I was the only one that picked Colorado. Chase was the only one. No, wait, Brayden also picked Bama, right? Against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'd take Bama.
So we're 2-2 because Cole and I went Ole Miss. Everyone picked Utah except for Chase. He picked UCLA. Everyone picked Oregon State except for Chase. He picked Washington State. And everyone picked Notre Dame except for Chase. He picked Ohio State. So either Chase is about to look like a genius or I'm about to add like 4 more bozos to his little tracker. So stay tuned. After week 4, we've got a loaded slate. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Bozo Tracker.
I love it.
Yeah, this was a good episode. Brayden, I liked having you on, bro. This was like a lot of the previous episodes have been like a lot of just kind of fucking around, but I think that this was the most like college football focused episode we've done so far.
What we're here for, baby.
Like you provided a lot of good insight, especially in terms of NIL, because Luis and I are a couple of fucking idiots. So thank you for coming on. Episode 4 of the Rub and Tubs podcast. We're super hyped about it. If you guys are still listening, or those who made it this far in, we appreciate it, and hopefully we get to see you back here next week. Thank you all.
Hey, deuces and go Frogs.